Welcome to the Pinstripers podcast, a podcast about pinstripers hosted by two pinstripers. I'm one of your hosts, Jack Fleming.
And I'm your other host, Freddie Villa. And before we get started with the guest today, I'd like to mention sponsorship. If anybody would like to sponsor an episode, just reach out to Jack or me. We're asking for a $20 minimum, and you get a shout-outs, and you can give us as much money as you want. Jack?
All right. Yeah, another quick thing, too, that we haven't mentioned in a long time. If you guys have questions about things you want us to ask people, maybe people you'd like us to interview, shoot us a message. Both of us are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Always glad to hear from it. We get a lot of good feedback from a lot of people. But today, kind of jump into it here. Our guest is a good friend of ours, Kate Cook. A lot of people know her as Asphalt Canvas Customs. Kind of tripped over my tongue there. But this is a good interview. Good to have her on and good conversation. I guess let's go ahead and get started with
it. So welcome. Good morning, Kate. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank y'all for having me.
Morning.
Thank you for coming on. So what do you got going on this morning, Kate?
This morning, I am preparing to finish a t-shirt design for Full Throttle magazine. And then on Friday, we are going out of town. So I have a kind of a crazy week. But tomorrow, I'm going to Georgetown for this really cool job to recreate lettering on this old Firebird race car, like an original Bonneville Salt Flats car. So I'm excited for that job.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You get, it's nice because you get a nice mix of things that you get a chance to do, right?
Oh, definitely. That's the coolest part of this job. I mean, sometimes it can be stressful because you're like trying to prepare, y'all know, or it's like, okay, what jobs do I have this week and what materials do I need or whatever,
Do you use like a whiteboard or how do you schedule things? What do you use to schedule your stuff?
Oh, I'm still old school paper planner, like the 3-ring binder calendar that you can get at like Marshall's. That's like one of my things I do for years is pick out a fancy calendar I'm very specific on like the kind of like squares that the days have because I like list everything out. Like I'm just really old school. I don't use my husband and I try and use the Google Maps for like joint planning things like trips and stuff. But for my actual studio, I use a paper calendar and then I have like a listed out, it's kind of boring, but I have like a clipboard with like all the different projects that I have. And it's like a calendar just specifically for that I have a packet made for it, some Excel spreadsheet packet.
Nice. Yeah. I think this is the first time we've ever asked people their organization like method. And I think it's interesting because everybody probably has their own way of doing it, right?
Oh, definitely. I think like a lot of people I know use the Google calendars because then you can share it with other people. And I think like that's good. But for me, like I literally tried to do that. And here just recently this year, I was like, no, I have got to get back to my like paper calendar and then like my packet that I have, like the Excel spreadsheet that I print out that has like a chart where I write like the client's name, how they contacted me, our last contact. Cause I have like a running list of contacts that haven't actually like committed to a job yet. And so I make sure like on Fridays to go through that list and make sure like when was the last time I contacted these people, not to hound them, but I always like make sure that I have like some sort of follow-up or a note that says like they're not scheduling until this date or they have a family emergency, they couldn't schedule, whatever their reasoning for them scheduling is, just so I have that all written down. And I was trying to do that on Excel or Google and things, and I was like, no, this is not working. I have to see it like out in front of me. I'm such a visual person.
That right there's a weak point for me.
Oh, really?
Stuff that's not scheduled or like following up on people that gets dropped all the time on accident.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying I'm very good at it, but I know that like it's weird because I think about like all the jobs I had up until when I was a full-time artist and at the collision center I used to work at, we used to have like a customer service system where we had like a notes section that they were like super adamant that we write down like in the notes, like what the person's, what their last action was, like whether it was their scheduling or they're coming in. And I remember being so bad at that. And my boss would always get on me about that because multiple people would have their hands on the file. and looking at those notes to see like, okay, where is this customer going to be at coming in? And so I think that really trained me to be a little bit better at like, and then you have like 26 different ways people can contact you these days. So it's like, you have to like write down like, okay, this was through Gmail. This was through Facebook Messenger. I try and get everyone into filter into Gmail, but it's tough. You still get the text message or the phone call or, and that's okay.
I use the Google Calendar deal. That way my wife can see it as well, like you were saying. But that's where I keep most of my stuff, and I put in the notes there. This person's been contacting me through text or Messenger or Instagram or whatever it is.
Awesome.
I got a boss. I do a side work running sound because I went to school for sound engineering. It's something that I wanted to do full time, but then I realized it was a lot of moving cases. So I backed off. Mm-hmm. But he likes to use the Google Calendar, and he sucks at it. He sends me like, okay, it'll be load in is at 7 a.m., right? So I work nights, and I'll think, okay, so I need to take like a half night off so that I can get some sleep so I could be there at 7 a.m., and I'll schedule it. And 3 days before the show or whatever event that we're doing, he'll send me a text, hey, load in's at 2 p.m. So, come on, man.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that would stress me out so bad.
Yeah. And then you get there and he's got a way to contact us. He doesn't tell us what anything is. We're just like, okay, we're going to run sound over here. We're going to put the speakers over here. We're going to do this. Just, I need you to run cables. And maybe 20 minutes before things start, I'm like, what is this? And, yeah. And then I'll find out it's like a gala for a high school or something, you know what I mean? Like I have no idea what any of it is until like we sit down and start. So yeah.
Oh man. Well, that would stress me out because like the unknowns, like for what we all do as Pinstripers and stuff, there's so many unknowns as it is, where you're like, okay, how's the shop going to be laid out? Am I going to have the space? What's the weather? What's the time frame? Is there going to be 25,000 people there? Like, is there going to just be one person there breathing down my neck? Like, there's so many unknowns, like stuff you can't plan. So like whatever I can control and plan, I try and do that.
Yeah. When you said one person breathing down my neck, I got chills. Like,
yeah. I think we've all had that customer. I definitely have.
Yeah. I had one once that was drinking too, and the more drunk he got, the more he wanted. Like just why don't you just do a little here and do a little there and just put a couple of. And I was like, man, and his stuff started looking real circusy because he just wanted dots. He's like, put some dots and throw some dots.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I could smell the alcohol in him more and more. And I was like, oof.
Was he still satisfied when he sobered up?
Yes, he was. I think, you know what, man? I think the fellow was just, he kind of just wanted somebody to hang out with. And I think,
yeah. Well, I've had jobs like that too with old guys, where it's like they just want to tell me their life story, and like this one guy had me paint all of the, and it was a job that needed to be done. I don't know if he was prepared to like have me do that, but he was so interested in telling. He was such a cool dude. He's recently passed, but like he was a Vietnam War veteran. And he was a veterinarian in the Army. And so he was telling me all these things. And I was like, I was loving it. But all the guys at the shop were thinking I was stuck there listening to this old man tell a story, but here I am like painting in every little detail in the emblems of the truck, like, like the faded out, like black emblems on the truck. He wanted me to like go through and paint all those black, and then like go on all the hubcaps and paint all the detailed I think it was like bow ties on the hubcaps and all this like very detailed work that was not planned out as he was telling me the stories.
Well, I'm curious to know now, when people add stuff to y'all's job, how is it that you tackle it? Yeah, well, I'll start with you, Kate.
Oh man, well, Jack probably has a better outlook on this because he's been doing it for longer than me. But this has been one of the hardest things for me is like on the spot additions. Like I have a hard time saying like, well, that's going to be extra. But then I'll tell you, if I'm honest, like when I had my son, like my time is so it's so finite and planned. Like I have a babysitter and I have an extra mouse to feed. So now when somebody says, hey, can you add this on? Like it really is a lot easier for me to say like, well, it's going to be extra. Like, I just have to be pretty like blunt about it. Cause like, it's almost every job. I would say 97% of jobs, there's always going to be that person that says like, well, can you put a little lettering here? Can you, you did that rat fink in 5 seconds. Could you do that here on this tailgate or on my bike or whatever? I'm like, dude, it's not a sticker. Like, a lot of work to do, you know. Like, so yeah, I would say in recent years, I've gotten a lot better at saying like, I'm sorry, it's going to be more for that. Are you okay with that? And most often they are. And if they're not, they'll just say, okay, well, maybe another time. You know, no one's ever been like a jackwagon about it. So
I know for me, I mean, I'm usually doing most stuff kind of on the fly because I do a lot of stuff at car shows. And even whenever it's in someone's shop or whatnot, we talk through things. I kind of price by the piece on stuff.
Yeah.
And then as we're talking and figuring stuff out, they're kind of have an understanding of that. So whenever they do go to add something, they're always asking me, how much more would it be to do this? Or
that's such a good point. Is like basically saying up in the before you start the work, like I do it by the panel or I do it by the, you know, by the area or whichever. So they do have an understanding. I think that's a really good point.
Well, I think good example of something too that's kind of ties along to that. This weekend I was at a car show in Abilene and I saw a truck roll up on a trailer and I was like, hey, I know that truck. I striped that truck a couple years ago. And while I was out working on something else, the guy that works my booth, my buddy Brian, calls me up and says, hey, that guy wants you to come do a piece on his hood to match what you did on his trunk before.
Okay.
So I went over there to do that job, did it. I think I was there, I don't know, hour and a half maybe. And he wanted to do some other stuff and we talked through it and it was a windy day. So I was like, you know, it's probably, I like it. Here's what I would do with that. But it's not something I could do here. That'd be better to do in the shop. Can we schedule a time for you to come bring it to my shop?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, I guess, a for instance on that.
That's a good thing. And I remember Jen saying the same thing where she'd rather schedule out like at car shows, if it's not just like a basic little name, like I pretty much always schedule out when I'm painting live like that, because I have a lot of like, I'm a slow pinstriper. And so like, I like to plan things out and plan my colors and like not be rushed. And so if the person is willing and they're semi-local, like I'll try and schedule it out. But that is a good point, is like, I guess it goes back to just letting your customer, like helping your customer understand like what needs to happen. It's not their fault that they're like, hey, can you do this little thing right here? Or like Jack said, like, can you put this thing on the hood of my truck or whatever? It's just letting them know like, this is what's going to be best for everybody involved. This is how you're going to get the best quality work from me if we do it in this way.
Yes. Communication, right? Communication is key.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's funny because I don't know about you guys, but I'm fairly introverted. So it's like, it's a lot of work to communicate with people. And it's
definitely. I would say I'm extroverted, but I think like talking money is always hard for me. It's always been hard for me. So, and like charging has always been hard. So like when you're trying to like quote educate the person on why you're charging that's something that I've had to learn over the years of that type of communication and doing it like in a professional but like clear way. Like this is how it is and this is why, you know.
And and I think it's also great that y'all have a lot of surplus like prints and shirts and print. I'm thinking prints mostly, but I think that's gotta be a big helper, right? To have these nice prints, they're already priced. They could just pick them up and go, right?
Yeah, I think that they have. I think there's downfalls for sure in having like inventory such as that. Me and Jack have talked a lot about this, like what is best, but like I know we both have, like for me, in my studio I have like good, better, and best as far as like inventory. I have like posters, which are my most affordable option, and then like better would be my limited edition prints, and best obviously would be my original paintings. And that's always how I try to structure my studio. But like having the inventory of prints is good for like a quick pickup situation. But not always, it's hard to like have inventory and stock on hand if you have a small house, like a small studio, or like you're traveling and to keep managing that. Like, cause for instance, like I've had some prints that I've ordered in bulk that I've carried around for years, you know, cause I thought they were going to sell like hotcakes. And then I totally overshot myself, and I've had stacks of prints laying around. So I don't know. It's kind of, everything has a little bit of a double-edged sword, but yes, it does help supplement, like at shows and stuff when if you're slow or however. Jack, I'm sure you have a lot to say on that too.
I've got questions on that.
Okay. Well,
I was just going to say you should turn those into your limited edition prints, and then they'll go.
Well, it's definitely two different customers. Like you'll have, I've just noticed now that I've started carrying the limited edition options, which in my studio are like far, far, far better than the print. The poster option, like the quality of the print is better. The size is normally going to be the same size as the original painting on my limited edition prints. But a lot of the car show guys don't really give a crap about that. Like they just want a $50 to $70 poster that they can or cheaper, but a $50 poster to just pin up in their garage, which is great. I mean, that's fantastic as well. So it's good to have something for everybody.
I'm curious, when you go to a show and you set up, I've never seen your setup at a show. I know we talk about that kind of stuff frequently. But what do you bring? Do you bring one or two originals? Do you bring no originals? Do you bring a handful of limited editions, or how do you do that?
Okay, yes. So my booth has evolved over time, and it definitely evolves with each show I go to, depending on where I'm going to be at.
Absolutely.
But I definitely bring all of my originals, both my paintings and the things I've pinstriped, obviously, because they go up on a grid wall. And then I have posters, which are rolled. All my posters come rolled. And I need a better way to probably display those as far as showing people what they get, because the posters are still pretty big. I think it's Tom Fritz is one of the artists I kind of go off of as far as my display goes. And he has a little sticker on the rolled poster that shows what the poster is and how big it is.
Smart.
And I think that's what's missing on my posters, although I do sell those pretty frequently at shows. And then I have my limited edition prints, which normally I try and bring one of each of those, which is a huge upfront investment financially. But
do you display those framed or unframed?
They're all unframed, and they're they're backed with foam board, and then they have the plastic sleeve over them. So it's like what you see at an art festival. And then I have a sign, a huge sign that says if I don't have limited edition prints, for instance, I have a big sign, because I'll keep one on hand at all times, and I'll have a big sign under it that says pre-order limited edition prints. And then I have a clipboard up by my newsletter sign up that you can sign up to have a limited edition print sent to you. If you can pay for it there at the show, and then when I get home, I order it from the print shop. The print shop sends it directly to the customer.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Once you find a print shop, which I'm so blessed to have found a print shop that works with me, but they have a folder for my studio there, so they're able to carry my business card and my certificate of authenticity for those prints that are already signed. And so if I can go down there and just sign it real quick, sign the print and number it real quick, and then they'll send it with all that information, the certificate and my cards, to the customer. If for some reason they couldn't buy a limited edition at the show, that's what happens.
Very cool. I think it's good. It's good to see that you got a lot of different avenues and people that are willing to work with you. It seems like every time I turn around, I see another post where you're kind of doing some work with a company or an organization or a magazine or something, and it's awesome to see.
Oh, thanks, Freddie. Thank you.
There's another thing I was going to commend you on is just the way you market yourself. It's so clean and so I don't know. I admire the way you're marketing yourself, I guess. There's no other way to say it, because
oh man, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's very Americana, right?
Yep. That's what it's funny. I say Americana, and then I went to the Amelia Island concourse, and I learned so much about European cars and racing and kind of the more foreign aspect. And my husband and I are how about those hot rods? We were so out of place. We were so out of place, but it was cool because we were like learning from, that kind of crowd, the people that love like the Porsches and the Lamborghinis and all those things were teaching us as well as we were teaching them, like circle track racing versus drag racing. It was cool. But yeah, I love like the Americana. I still love that. And I'm that's my thing. That's what inspires me the most.
Yeah. And it really shows the, the level of commitment you have to the particular image. And, I think you've done well with it. I think I noticed that at some point you had lost some of your social media or something. It got.
Oh, yes. That was, I think, been almost 2 years, maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I finally got to that, I got to that 10,000 mark without paying for advertising or anything or and then it was right before Christmas. I got a message from Instagram. I opened the app and it wouldn't let me log in, and it said that I was trying to pretend to be someone else. What? And that they weren't allowing me back into my account. And so they had me like send my social security number and my tax ID number to show that I was doing business. And then I actually sent along like a multitude of different painting images so that they could see like, this is my artwork. And, I went through all the rigmarole that they asked me to go through, and my account is completely like, it's gone. I can't even find my old account. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but I mean, it's been slow going. I think I have like 4,000 or 5,000 followers now, which is, it's more than enough. I don't need, I mean, I hope for it to grow every day, which it does, but it's completely organic. Like I said, I don't have the money right now to pay for like advertisement on social media and stuff. So,
I've never paid for ads either. Every now and then it comes up and like I'll get through to the point to where it wants my credit card information. And that's where I just I back
you get leery.
Yeah, I back all the way out.
Yeah.
I'm cheap, man. If people ask me for money, I'm like, skirt. Like,
well, yeah, I think Jen and I are talking about this, like getting paid through social media accounts. Like we get some money from social media, but like when I was putting in my card on Facebook, I was like, this is scary. Like, I mean, they know everything and they could get it probably any way they wanted to because those people are crazy. But just when you're like willingly typing that information in, it's like, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah, no, I know the exact feeling. I don't get anything through Facebook. I do get a little bit through Instagram and a little bit through YouTube. But
yeah, I bet. Yeah.
I feel a little more safe with YouTube. But go ahead, Jack.
I know some people have like stores, I guess, associated with their Facebook or Instagram where you can actually buy through those deals. Have either of you done anything with that, or?
I don't do that. My husband does that huge. Like my husband has a whole store on Instagram that links to his account and links to his website with AC Speed Shop. But with me, my inventory is changing so much. And then like my prices aren't always the same, obviously, on every painting I'm going to upload. So it makes it hard. But I know, McKeague Art, I think that's how you say it. He does a shop through Instagram and it seems to do pretty well for him, I think. But, and his shop is really clean and nice on Instagram. And I think it just all relates back to his website. But yeah, right. I'm like, God, that's just one more thing I need to like mess up, Yeah,
I think they're all tied together, and that I guess kind of makes me worried because if you get shut out of Instagram or something, is it going to end up affecting your website? And I guess it wouldn't, but yes. I don't.
I think it depends on how much you put into it, right? If you put all your marbles into one, then there's a problem. I will say I was offered some money through the Reels through Instagram. But Facebook, even though they're connected, Facebook gave me an offer as well. They just send you an email like, hey, you can make so much. And that basically means you're available to use the Reels and make some money. But when I went to try to sign up for Facebook, it said, I don't know what it said. It said you just couldn't. And I'm thinking, but you're the same as Instagram.
I know, it's so silly. I told Morgan, like, Facebook and Instagram have like a monopoly. They can just pretty much do whatever the F they want and nobody cares. Like I've been approved like for certain posts and then approved for not approved for certain posts on Instagram. I'm always approved on Facebook, but I'm not always approved on. It's just ridiculous. Like how they can just completely do whatever the heck they want. Like, if any other business did this, like, they would not stay in business. Like,
No, well, it's kind of one of them things that they sort of know they got it. You know, they know that there's nowhere else that people are really posting except for TikTok. But even that's it's like a weird thing too. That one.
mm-hmm.
It's like everyone's got its type of demographic, even though it's really not like an age, right? Because I know a guy at work, he's in his 40s, and all he does is watch TikTok, and I'm thinking I thought that was like a kid thing, right? TikToks. And but I think it really is just like I don't know, maybe a personality type that goes towards that, and a personality type that goes towards Instagram and Facebook and such.
I had a really good tip from one of my customers who basically said to me, and I've always kept it in the back of my mind, but this was before TikTok came to fruition, but he said, like, you have two demographics. You have Facebook is going to be your older clientele, and Instagram is going to be your younger, like, more millennial clientele, and the older Facebook clientele will more willingly be able to afford your artwork. Certain types of your artwork, and then the millennials will be more willing to share your artwork. So, like, you need to be on both platforms so that they kind of work hand in hand with the two different, like, ages of people. And I was like, that's very true. Like, if I think about my Instagram, all of my followers, like, you know, it has the little graph or whatever that you can go in on the back end of a business account, and you can see, like, it's between 18 and 32 on Instagram, and then on Facebook, it's very clearly like 32 and up. Like, I very rarely have like 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds even like on my Facebook sharing my stuff and reading my blogs and all those things. It's just a different demographic.
Yeah, I think it's good to go in between, at least in between the two.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and I've props to people that do TikTok too. I'm like, I can't do all of the things. It's too much.
I'm on it. I tried it. I'm kind of just, it's on the back burner, man. I think, you know, I don't know. I think maybe between the three of us, we could probably understand that we're all kind of feel a little spread thin, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if especially like you, Freddie, if you have multiple jobs, and then, you know, Jack has multiple kids, and it's just a lot to. It's like, okay, people, pick two things and do really, really good job at them, and I think you'll be good. You know.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? If I hadn't said it yet, congratulations on the baby.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he's awesome. He's a super chill little guy, and I mean, it's definitely been a learning curve in regards to my business, but he's awesome. He's a really cool little kid, so we're lucky.
I was totally blown away when we were at Autorama, and he was there the whole time, like every day, and happy.
Yeah.
Or sleeping.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. And he's super content, like, and we've made it very, like, we've tried to bring him to as many things as we can, even when he was little, just so that we can get him acclimated to doing those things with us. Because we don't, like, your life changes a little bit, you know, but the best advice we got was just like, don't conform your schedule to theirs. Try and get their schedule to conform to your already existing schedule. And of course, like, there's give and take with that, with his sleep schedule and stuff, and it's very challenging and exhausting, but as everyone knows that has kids, but it's worth it. You know, it was cool to have him there. And I mean, same for you, Jack. You had your older kids there, and they were so helpful and, like, willing to be painting with us and stuff. It was just a really cool, like, family experience all around.
Yeah, they had a blast.
Yeah, I love Jed. He's the coolest kid. We were waiting for Jack and Alicia to, like, kind of load up the truck, and so we were hanging out with Jack's son, and I said, what do you want to do when you grow up? He's like, I want to be an artist like Dad. And, like, he wasn't even looking at me. He was, like, playing or doing something, and he just was looking down doing something, and he said that without even, like, having a hesitation. I was like, okay, that's awesome.
It's pretty awesome. He got his first commission while we were there at that. He got paid in Hot Wheels, so I mean.
That is so cool. He'll never forget that.
I hope not.
Yeah, it's such a good thing. Like, man, were we gonna, like, try and recap the Autorama and how that all went? Or
yes, that was a good lead way into it.
Okay.
You know, real quick before we do that, we kind of jumped over, I guess, a little bit of introduction, background, and stuff with you, Kate. Do you want to kind of I guess tell people who you are, where you can be found, where you're from, just a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I should have introduced myself. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's good.
I know y'all, so it's like, oh, just another conversation. But yes, so my name's Kate Cook. I own Asphalt Canvas Custom Art in Central Texas. We're located in Belton, Texas. I work from my home studio here, and I've had Asphalt Canvas Custom Art for about 5 years. And I actually just coined and trademarked the term automotive, which is my style of painting. It's automotive paint on canvas. And then, of course, I also do pinstriping, which is what kind of led me in this direction for my style of artwork. And then, like Freddie mentioned earlier, like most of my paintings are inspired by like Americana. And so they feature different classic cars and then the female figure in the form of pinup, classy pinup only. And I do commissions and original artwork, and it's all on my website. All of my social media and everything is there as well. It's asphaltcanvascustomart.com. So.
Man, and what a cool name, Asphalt. Like, I was thinking about that. I was like, man, that's rad. Asphalt. Who would have thought to do that? Asphalt.
Yeah, I was thinking like asphalt canvas. Like, so I have my old Jeep. It's a 1966 Jeep. And when I was coming up with my business name, a lot of the commissions that I was originally getting were from car shows by showing my restored Jeepster, because my dad and I restored it when I was in high school. And so I'd go to all these shows and talk to these people, and the shows would be all over. We've taken the Jeep like on road trips all over the country. So I was thinking like, okay, what's another term for like road? And so I thought of asphalt. And then like, what's another term for artwork? And then canvas is what came up. And so I had these two lists of like the two things I wanted in my business name. I had a huge list of words, and I'd put them together and I'd be like, no. And then I'll put these two together and no. And then I finally came up with asphalt canvas. And I was like, that's perfect, because it correlates with like my love for road trips and my love for artwork, and the people I meet on those road trips are normally what inspires my artwork. So that's kind of how I came up with the name.
It's pretty cool. And how did you, I don't know if I ever got the story. How'd you get into pinstriping?
Well, the short version of it is I didn't start actually learning how to pinstripe until I graduated college. With a fine art degree in studio art, so like painting and drawing. I never touched a pinstriping brush or anything up until after that point, so 2013. And I had a bunch of books on pinstriping, because I've always admired the art form since I've been growing up in cars like all my life, with cars at car shows. Just really, and then like I said, building the Jeepster with my dad, like I was just very much a like shade tree gearhead. And so I started kind of dabbling in it on my off hours after work and teaching myself how to pinstripe. And it started with books. Like I said, I'm old school. I love learning from books. And then just going to different shows and meeting different pinstripers. And then once YouTube finally started kind of really picking up, I would, go through a couple videos on there. But honestly, like I didn't really use YouTube. It was kind of a trial and error thing. And I went through like a whole couple years of just like hating everything I made, like hating it. And then finally, and like as from an artist background, like I was so frustrated. I'm like, here I am with this like degree, and I know I have talent in art, but like I can't seem to master this art form. It's so frustrating. And in college, I did like every art form. We did printmaking and oil painting and figure drawing and all the things. And I always felt like proficient in all of those things. But when I picked up a pinstriping brush, I had like so many photos of artwork that it was just terrible. It was terrible. And so finally, the first guy who gave me my first job was this guy here in town. I don't remember how I met him, but he, this sounds so redneck, and coming from Texas, people are going to be like, yeah, of course. But he used to race competition pulling tractors, like lawnmowers, essentially, that they've like souped up. And like, I'm talking, these tractors are like thousands and thousands of dollars, and they put like these beautiful paint jobs on them, and they do all these things. And so he'd seen my work somewhere, and he was like, hey, can you pinstripe my tractor? And I said, yeah, of course. And of course I was super nervous, and I had no idea what the heck I was doing. And that was my first job. And he was over the moon with the work I did. And I actually was really proud of it too. Of course, now I look back on it and it's like, ooh, yikes. But but yeah, that was my first job. And from then on, like it gave me, every job from then on gave me a little bit more confidence and a little bit more confidence because I don't know, it took a long time to feel proficient in pinstriping because there's so many people that I was looking at and so many rules that I wanted to make sure I had correct before I like was getting paid for it. So yeah, it's everything really that I've done in my pinstriping and like lettering career has been the client putting the trust of the client, like saying like, yeah, I know you can do this. I've seen your other work and it could be something I've never done before. And I'm like, yeah, I can. And then I go back to my studio and I think, okay, how, and I like dissect the project and I do a bunch of research on it. And, thank God for social media because I was able to, like in my early days, especially was able to like reach out to other artists and say like, hey, for some reason this paint's bubbling up, or, if I was having an issue, I could actually like talk to a seasoned professional and send them videos and ask. And like, I think for us millennials, not to say that I am one, but I definitely use social media a lot more than, the older guys. But that's been a huge help to me. And the people that are willing to help and reach back out, like, I think that's how Jen and I met. Brandon McCoy with Gooch Pinstriping was one of the first people that I, was able to reach out and say like, hey, this clear isn't working. Like, what the heck am I doing wrong? And, Top Shelf Signs, like he helped me with a few projects in my early career. And now I have people asking me those questions. So it's really a special thing how the tables come full circle.
Yeah, it's, even when I was starting out too, I thought it's kind of wild how accessible the pros are.
Yes, if that's the simple way to put it. Sure.
Yeah, because if you're a basketball player, you're not going to go message Kobe Bryant and get words from him, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
we could, hit up Bobby Honick and Steve Chazet and all these people, and they're just, oh yeah, just do the, it's like, and they've been asked the same thing hundreds of times, but they're still gracious enough to respond. I think it's amazing.
Oh, totally. And then like what you guys are doing with podcast, it's like, you can hear not just the technical side of pinstriping, but the career side of it. And like, that is such a rare thing for people older than us. Like I'm 31. So like anybody older than me, like they never really had that ability to say like, unless they're reading a book about another artist, it's like, oh, this career pinstriper has also gone through very similar career things as I have, whether it's good or bad. And it makes you feel like you're kind of doing the right thing. Like, not that you need validation from the outside world, but it does definitely help to think like, okay, you are going to have to fire a customer sometimes. You are going to have those bad clients. You're not going to always like everything that you make. There's going to especially the negative stuff you get to hear from other pinstripers, like even me and Jack talking and stuff, we kind of are able to, I don't want to say commiserate, but at least at least have a better understanding that there's other artists in the same boat, and having that podcast or the conversation, it's hugely helpful both for the good and the bad of being a creative business owner.
Yeah, that's why I think me and Jack both are like, hey man, we need to do another one. Like every time I talk to Jack, he's like, dude, we're falling off. I'm like, I know, we need to do another one. So it's hard to get the everybody involved, as sometimes it's like family and times and all that, but we do what we can to make it happen. And I think the next person, I'm going to go ahead and say it, the next person I want to try to get, and we spoke about it, was Andy Capuccio. So that'll be another.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, he's always been super. Once again, he's one of those guys like I've never met in person, but on social media, he's super friendly and like seems like a great guy. He seems in this industry in general. Like, and I've heard a lot of your people that you have on here say this. Like, this industry is very friendly overall. Like, people are pretty willing. Like, it's kind of like a weird like secret handshake. Like, if you have been through the ringer with pinstriping career, like you're pretty much in. Like, you have friends in this industry. Like, people are gonna like understand, and they're gonna be willing to like welcome you. And at least that's what the majority that I felt like I've felt very welcome in this industry. As long as like if you're a beginner, like be a beginner. Be honest where you're at in your career, and don't try and like fake it until you make it. Like, that's not what this is about. But people are generally pretty friendly and nice in this industry, in my opinion.
Jack, write down secret handshake, man. We got to get a secret handshake.
Secret day together.
Yeah, I like t-shirt. Me and Jack have like a bunch of we have vault ideas for t-shirts, but yeah, you could do like a secret handshake and do like, a pinky promise, which would be funny because of the whole pinky concept of pinstriping. I don't know.
Oh, that's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
The problem is your demographic to sell them shirts is going to be like 150 people, and then it's going to stop.
Yeah.
And we're all
kind of like our podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 250 people. That's it. So you only need to make 250 shirts ever.
And we're all so nice. We'd probably just be like giving them out, like.
Yeah. Yep. Somebody gave me a shirt, and I was like, "How much is it?" Like $25. I'm like, "I'll give you the money." Like,
I know. Well, I keep telling Jack. Jack has this really cool Jack Think shirt that I keep wanting to get from him, and I keep forgetting. But like, I need to pay for that, Jack, and get it from you because I think it's hilarious, and it's one of those. But then, like me and Alicia with Cherry Bomb Pinstriping, she was like talking about her new shirts, and I was like, I'll give you a t-shirt from my studio if you give me a t-shirt. And we were just recently talking about like financial situations and like how we were like charging people. And I was like, okay, we're not making any money off this. Here we are again.
Yeah.
No,
they're like soccer players at that point at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Trading jerseys.
Oh, and I think Alicia's going to help us out. She's going to help us create a Instagram page. I think she was reached out to try to help us out and make an Instagram page. So shout out to her whenever that gets started.
I need to try and give her a call today.
Yeah, no worries. Another thing to add to the list with the Pinky Promise t-shirt and all that.
Yes.
So, okay, let's go to the Dallas Autorama. And what was it called? The Great Texas
Great Texas Pinstripers Panel Jam.
Yeah. Which was kind of an mouthful, but it worked out perfectly for. I mean, I got great feedback when I was reaching out to like sponsors and stuff. They're like, "That's such a cool name." I'm like, well, it's a mouthful, but thanks.
Yeah,
it's big like Texas.
There you go.
Absolutely.
You should make it longer next year.
Just keep adding to it.
That'd be funny. Just a long ass acronym. Yeah. So y'all raised your goal. Everything went well. Was there any challenges that y'all feel like came about that you were unexpected?
I think our biggest goal was just to have it this year. So we met our goal.
Yeah. So time frame is Jack called me, and we had like talked earlier before we made the decision, but Jack was kind of the spearhead on like, hey, we need to do this again. Like not just for us and like getting the artwork, getting to be together, but for the hospital's sake, we need to do it. And so he called me, I think it was 3 months before the show was supposed to take place. The Pinstripers Panel Jam happens during the Dallas Autorama. It's a 3-day event. And then, so Jack called and said like, hey, let's do this. And I was super on board because I had been invited to the previous year's events, like prior to COVID shutting down our gig and then like just kind of not being able to do it for the past couple of years. That's something I'd really missed in the beginning of my career each year, because it's really like, it's such an event that just really builds like inspiration. It's awesome to be around like-minded people. And then of course, to be able to raise the money for the hospital is so special, doing like what we love. So I was on board instantly. And yeah, we had 3 months to kind of get everything together. And Jack said, like our only goal was just to have it happen. And I think it went really well for it to be. I mean, for only 3 months worth of planning, we had I think 10 sponsors for the event. I have to. Let me go back on my Instagram. But yeah, we had
get your planner out. Go get your planner.
Yeah, exactly. No, I must have listed the sponsors on our page like 6 million times. I could like tell you by like I could tell you like with my eyes closed who our sponsors were. But I mean, so we had Gnarly Magazine, One Shot Paint, Skateboard Connection, Paint Cult, AC Speed Shop, Full Throttle Texas, and then of course Scottish Rite at the hospital. Scottish Rite for Children up in Dallas as our sponsors. And then we had to get an auctioneer and have the actual setup. So we had to get the tables from the hospital And just there was a lot of moving parts and a lot of people involved to make it happen. It wasn't just like a let's do this and show up. It was a lot of planning leading up to it, but I think it went really well. I don't know about you, Jack. I was really happy with everything.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned a lot of hands being involved. It started trying to get it going a long time before that, and there was a lot of hands involved leading up to that. Geez, trying to think. Definitely big props to the people who had a panel jam there before, the Brothers of the Brush group. They called it Jim Crawford Pinstriper Jamboree. And, things really started with them. They started stuff.
Yeah.
And with COVID and other stuff, most of the people got busy and other things happened in their lives and stuff. And it didn't happen for a few years. And there was people asking about it. And I was asking them about it. And at some point in time, Chase and Rachel, who were the ones that were kind of running stuff before, or the biggest part of that as far as promotion and stuff, them and I started talking about stuff. And then kind of a shout out to Brad Meredith. He's the one who, to my understanding, originally kind of got all of that started. And I was talking to him and he said, maybe a different group needs to take over and do it with a different name and all. And that was, to me, kind of that okay, let's go ahead and get this going and quit trying to stoke the fire, I guess, to bring that back. And then,
that's a good point. It's like we wanted this to be a completely separate event. But we also knew like there was like veteran of the event. I don't know. It's hard to say, but like we didn't want to step on anyone's toes by like trying to recreate something that was in someone else's hands originally. So we were like, let's just make an entirely new name, and then an entirely new event altogether, and kind of like revamp it so that it was more ours than it was theirs. And then we invited all of the guys from the Brother of the Brush group. We invited them, of course, to be our artists there, and the people that could make it came, and the ones that didn't, hopefully they can come next year. But they're always going to be, in my opinion, they should always be included because they were the ones who had like the original, the OG Pinstripers panel jam.
Yeah,
I was going to say another big shout out too would be Johnny Carpenter down in Houston, because he does the panel jam down there, and I went to theirs, and at that, him and I started talking. He's like, "Man, I'll talk to the people that run Autorama and everything, and we'll get it set up." Yeah. And that's kind of really where the ball definitely started going, because he's the one who got approval for us for this year. So big props to him.
Yeah, definitely. And then he came as one of our artists too. So he was
helping out. And he's the one who reached out to One Shot, and he played a huge part. There was a lot of people who played a big part.
Yeah, so we should mention like Alicia was another host with Cherry Bomb Pinstriping, and then Steve Lee, who is another big name that helped us a lot. We could not have done what we did without him. What he did, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but he cut and painted a like huge amount of panels that we all got to paint on and donate for the auction. And he donated all his time and materials for that. So, what do you think? He came up with like, I don't even know how many panels.
He painted all of them. Brad Beasley, who's not a Pinstriper, he's the one who cut and donated all the panels and stuff to us. And then a big shout out to him. Here's somebody who's not an artist that's there painting, and he showed up even with a broken hand and helped us unload and load tables and run stuff kind of behind the scenes. So
yeah, he was a huge help. And it was so funny. He would like bid on things from like, he'd be like cleaning up our tables while the auctions were going on, which was awesome. Like he was always like just moving around things and making sure everything was organized. And then like from the corner during one of the auctions, he'd be like, put in his bid. And I don't think he actually bid and won anything. He just kind of like would bid every now and then if it was slow. And it always cracked me and my husband up because we're like, oh, there he is. It was perfect. But
we gave him something in the end as a thank you.
Yeah. So like that was the coolest part is this was Jack's idea and I loved it, but he was pretty adamant about like giving back to our sponsors because they did a lot of like not just social media promotion for us, but like, for instance, Skateboard Connection sent us blank boards that Jack had his guy paint for us. But like all these people, the Full Throttle Texas magazine, Tim, he donated money so that we could purchase a like standing toolbox that we all painted live there at the auction. And then donated with all the proceeds going to the hospital. But all these companies like donated their time. So Jack was pretty adamant on us giving back to them as well. So on Sunday, kind of over a period of time, we all like painted. We did a panel jam essentially for like 10 different panels, and everyone that was there like painted some lions on a panel and came up with this design, and we got to send those panels as thank yous, and they were all surprised. Like they were all surprises. We got to send them to all the different companies that helped us put on the event, which was cool. I'm a huge proponent of like thank you notes and giving back, and so that was really a cool thing, and I think we'll continue that throughout every time we do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds like it was a big success. Was there?
Oh yeah, we should mention how much we made for the hospital. I think the total, what was it, Jack? 15. Let me look at that.
It was, I think, right over 15,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So we raised about 15,000 for the hospital with, I would say, like just a handful of artists. There wasn't a lot of us there, but
I think our total number was maybe around 15 artists, and then I think we had close to 90, maybe a little bit more pieces of art that were auctioned off.
That's what I was going to ask, is how much art was auctioned.
Yeah, so we wanted.
It was roughly around 30 pieces per auction, and we did 3 auctions.
Yes, which I think was a great amount of auctions.
Yeah.
Do you suppose there'd be like a number of diminishing returns, like if you had too many artists? Like you suppose it could be too much?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious. I've not been to any big one. I've only really been to the one in Nauvoo, and it was it's really small. It's like, I don't know, 8 people. But they're kind of more it's a little bit loosey, a little loose. We just kind of all hang out in one house and paint. And then it gets auctioned off. I'm unsure. I think it goes to a automotive school, so it helps to get.
That's cool.
Yeah, it helps to give a kid that's doing good in school like a step into the program. So I've yet to get to any of the big ones, but it's hard, missing work and then like the cost to get to places. It's like, but hopefully I'll at least make an attempt to get out there to Texas next year when y'all have the next one.
Yeah, definitely. We should give a shout out to the 2 things. I want to thank the hospital because I think the artists coming should know. So when you get an invite to this event, like your food is pretty much covered. Like the hospital paid for our lunch and dinner. What was it? I think all 3 days almost.
Yeah, I believe so.
Like
or at least lunch and dinner for 2 days, and I think lunch for another day.
Yeah. So like that's a huge expense. I think that would deter somebody from coming. So that's a huge thank you to the hospital for doing that and providing that for us. And then in regards to like the diminishing returns statement, like I think having a big group of artists is awesome, but also Jack and I and the people that were hosts of this event, we were really focused more on the quality of the artwork, not the quantity. And for the coming years, we're even considering having reserves on set pieces so that the artwork is sold at least at what we would sell it for with the materials invested. Like no additional, like, something that has gold leafing on it is not going to be going for $60. Like it needs to be have some sort of a reserve, which I think will elevate and maybe help educate the audience too. Like, hey, this has gold leaf on it. There's a reason that there's a reserve on this piece and it's that much more valuable. I don't know. That's like all those little things we learned throughout the auction this past weekend. Like we took notes and we're going to, tweak things here and there. But I definitely think like if there's too much art, people get not bored, honestly, like because they may have an eye on a piece that's coming up, in the auction at the same time, and so they're not going to bid, of course, up until their piece of art comes up for auction that they want. And so if there's too much like small stuff, like I think we did a really good job this year of having like affordable, very small pieces, like such as bottle openers, all the way up to like that window that Steve and Brad painted, the coupe window. we had a huge array of like from small to big. So like people could bid on it, whatever their budgets were, they were going to be able to get a piece, hopefully. So that's kind of the goal, is to have quality artwork at a wide ranging, price point, and then have set reserves on some pieces that just, you got to have a little bit more money for the piece, just because of the nature of what it was made with.
One of the goals that I have, and I want to do here soon, and I've kind of been waiting until some of these other panel jams are over, but I want to reach out to the people that run the other ones and pick their brains and share ideas and stuff.
For sure.
And I'm kind of looking forward to that. I was going to mention too, another thing, and we had, I think, like 15 artists, but we had another, I think 4, if I remember correctly, artists that mailed pieces into us, and then big thanks to them. Freddie, you were one of them.
Yeah.
Somebody stole that and sent it to you, man. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, props to the thief that stole Freddie's work and sent it in.
No, I'm playing. Yeah, I don't have a lot of inventory, so I was looking around. I was like, oh, what could I do? And then I had that white piece, and I was like, well, let me send that. It's decent size. I have a hard time with white backgrounds, but I was like, and then I tried to do some lettering on it. It was nice.
That's really well, and also we should say too, the hospital set up so not only like there's multiple ways that people can donate to the event. It's like, obviously coming and bidding, and then artists can send in their panels, but also the hospital set up a landing page on their website just for the panel jam where you could make a monetary donation, which I thought was so cool, because I did have some family members and friends that were asking, like, is there a way that we can donate to your cause without being able to attend? And so I think when we have a longer runway of planning, that can be a lot more made more well known and more utilized. And with that said, like Jack and I and Alicia and Steve and everyone would be like definitely having like flyers for shows that we can put out. Like Jack's going to, like a concert array of car shows for his business. And he wants to have like, flyers that we can pass out to people when we're at other shows to kind of give awareness, like, hey, this is what we're doing at the panel or at the Autorama coming up. And hopefully that will give a little bit more of a, spread the word a little bit better, because like I said, we only had 3 months this past year to let people know that it was happening and kind of educate everyone, like, hey, this is what used to happen and now we're revamping it. It was a lot of information to try and get out in 3 months. So,
well, it sounds like it's being held by a great team, and it's exciting to hear you guys talk about it. It's exciting to hear people wanting to do something in implementing a plan and executing it, because there's so much damn indecisiveness out here, and it irks me. It irks me.
That's such a good point.
It irks me when people are just like, maybe, I don't know, and it's like, Jack's like, I'm going to do this thing. I think I'm going to do it. And then he's like, I'm doing it. And then he's like, I did it. And it's like,
yeah. And I like love, it's so funny that you say that, Freddie, because like when you find somebody that is decisive, it rocks your world, because that's such a rare quality in people these days. And I can say the same for Jack. I can say the same for Alicia. Like, I came off that weekend thinking like, wow, people still have like goals that they want to finish, like plan, set the goal, meet the goal, and then plan another goal, meaning next year's event. Like, it was so refreshing to be working with people, because that's very much how I work in my business. Like, and if I don't have a goal to be reaching towards, I'm like a lost puppy. Like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So it was really refreshing to be around people that had like the same vision and the same drive, because like people can have vision all day long. Like, there's plenty of people on Instagram that have vision, but it's the matter of like doing that it sets you apart. And when you see that quality in someone else, like, I think this day and age, for me anyway, it's like really refreshing and kind of shocking.
I think it's called impatience.
Yeah, that too. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's definitely a healthy imbalance.
Yeah, and I think it's an understanding too of like, if you don't do it, nobody's going to do it. It's like,
absolutely.
You just got to step into your an uncomfortable spot and say, all right, well, let's do this. Jack mentioned this podcast thing, and I was like, you sure you want to do it? Because I'll buy the stuff.
Yeah, it's me.
And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, it's on the way. And then he's like, so how are we going to do it? I'm like, we're going to 3-way call people, I guess. And he's like, all right. So we just started 3-way calling people. And we started with freaking Craig Judd. and he was amazing, and we just got a taste of that. So now we're just continuing,
Yeah, and that's what it takes is like, just pressing record. Like truly you can listen to all the self-help crap you want, but until you actually like go ahead and do it, it really doesn't matter. I'm sure like over the years, this podcast will evolve, just like I said, with the Pinstripers event, like that's going to evolve with people's input. Like we definitely want people's opinions and like what we could do better. Like that's hugely helpful to us. And like, we want to use that information to make the event better. And same with like what your podcast is. I'm sure like you have had feedback, good and bad. And like, you can just use that as constructive feedback to make whatever you're doing better.
Yeah, so far it's been pretty overwhelmingly positive. I think
that's awesome.
I can't remember if I've had any negative feedback, but
I can't really think of any.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes the phone call quality is like a little rough, but it's the easiest way for us to contact people that may not want to deal with the technology of Skype
exactly.
And that, and then setting up a password and all this. Or when I could just three-way call.
Yeah, and that's perfect because of your people that you're talking to. Like my grandpa's not going to get on the computer, like it's the perfect way for us to hear their stories you're locking in. It's Americana. Like you're locking in that story for future generations to hear their career story. And that's so, so special. Like it's work that's really needed. I think very much. Like I was just looking here at like my refrigerator and I have like letters on my fridge from my Grammy that passed away last year. And it's like, this is all I have left from her. And it's like her words and her writing. And it's so special because I feel connected to her in that way still. Like there's still a small part of her here. And in the same way that you guys are like capturing these stories on your podcast, like it's so important. It's important work.
Well, our condolences on your Grammy.
I'm sorry?
I said condolences on your Grammy.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. She was a cool lady.
Well, I always give credit to Jack. This was Jack's idea. I thought about doing something like 10 Minutes with a Pro or something like that for the YouTube channel. But even then, it was like, again, indecisiveness on my part because like I didn't want to add something else to my plate. And then I thought, well, if it's just me, like, what am I going to ask him? What if I get stuck, right? And then Jack brought it up like, oh, cool, I could just lean on him. If I run out of...
Dude, I feel like I'm leaning on you on this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, y'all got each other, and that's so special. And like, I get that, like, scare. Like, it's almost like, for me anyway, it was being scared of like commitment, like announcing something and then not following through with it. And I think this day and age, like, you can announce something on social media till the cows come home, but like committing to it and finalizing it is so it's hard and it's kind of scary. Like with my series, I announced it and then like we had a job change and we were forced to move and then like all these things happened and it was so challenging. It was already going to be challenging and then it became 10 times more challenging and I'd already announced it on social media. So it's like having a partner to do things with, and mine is Morgan. Like he's been a huge help to me in my career. But I think like having that saying that you're going to do and then following through with it is very scary. But the more we can do that, the better that we become, I think.
Yeah, staying in the uncomfortable zone.
As is every entrepreneur, that's just what it is.
Yeah. Well, I say, it's growth, right? If you don't tear the muscle, you don't grow.
Yeah.
We're all addicted to stress.
You should see man, I'm brown and I got dark circles under my eyes. It's hard to get that if you're this brown.
Oh, man. I hear you on the dark circles, though, and no having a baby. It's still a lot of no sleep.
Yeah. Well, Jack, do you have any more questions for Kate? And we can probably start to wrap it up a little.
I think one real quick thing that I don't want us to overlook. Kate, you've kind of mentioned it a few times, so you didn't really describe the series that you have that's relatively new. You debuted it last year.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jack. No,
and then the other thing too, just to tie into that real quick, the show that you just got finished with, the Amelia thing, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So definitely, I'll probably call you after, and we can really like talk about the ins and outs of the Amelia show because I learned a lot. But
That'd
for
be
those
awesome.
but for those that don't know, I started a series. So I have, like I said, I have a background in fine art and painting and oil, and then I started pinstriping, and I kind of combined those two things, and I came up with this series that was inspired by the Johnny Cash song "I've Been Everywhere." And the series itself is called She's Been Everywhere, and it highlights a vintage or classic car with a female driver at an iconic place in America. I did 10 12 by 24 inch canvas paintings in automotive enamel paint. And I thought that was going to be it, but I think I'm going to actually continue that series. And I have a couple paintings actually on my easel that are in continuation of that series, where the she in the She's Been Everywhere Man title actually becomes the vehicle itself. So that way I'm not always painting pinup girls, although I love to do that. All of the imagery is pretty much all of the imagery is inspired by actual photographers' work. So like I work with Speed and Culture, Trent Sherrill, a lot of his photographs of women in cars. There's a couple other people that I work with. Lucky Shot Images, I use a few of his photos, and then I work with actual pinup models to use their photos as well and put them into the paintings. So with that said, that kind of goes into my whole automotive theme of automotive art and automotive paint. But with that said, in that series, I was invited to go to the Amelia Island Concourse show in Florida. And it's for those that don't know, it's a show that's produced by Haggerty, and it's kind of like a series of shows throughout the country of pretty much high-end, historic, vintage, classic cars. Over 250 historically significant cars come to this show, and it's like a very exclusive show for all these different automotive brands. And so it was a goal that I had set for myself to be invited and figure out a way to get it there since the kind of inception of my She's Been Everywhere series. And so I just got through with that show. I think 2 weeks ago, we drove to Florida 15 hours with all of my booth display in the back of our Grand Cherokee, and got to set up there for 3 days essentially with setup day. And it was super successful. I got to sell an original, and then limited edition, a couple of limited edition prints. And then I do pinstripe earrings as well, which in that industry or in that like caliber of people went over really well because they are very amazed by pinstriping, which I thought was super cool. It's a very different scene for my husband and I. Like we just really enjoyed being around a different type of car people, and they were very friendly and welcoming. And but yeah, it was just a really successful show, and I learned a lot about like how to market my work in that industry. The more of the like, I don't know how to say it, but like European car industry, I guess, or like the supercar, high-end car industry. And because I got to see how other artists, like with their vendor displays, how they set up both indoor and outdoor, which is huge. It's a big deal. Like when you set up your vendor display, you want to make sure your brand is represented as well as your artwork is represented really professionally, so that you can ask the prices that you need/want for your artwork. So that
were you indoors then or outdoors?
I was on the show field, so I was outdoors both days.
Okay.
Crazy. Some artists actually set up indoors at the Ritz-Carlton one day and then take their entire setup down and then set up on the field the next day.
Wow.
It's a different area the next day. So, I mean, we're talking like it was an exhausting show. We left my son with my parents for this show because it was like a 5-day event. For me and my husband anyway, because we had all the driving. But yeah, it was super successful. I met so many cool people. People I had, called and contacted on Facebook and Instagram so many times, but I got to meet them in real life. I got to meet one of the judges for the show and like kind of hear his insight. And a cool story about that was so we got to have drinks with this judge that was at the Amelia, who does all the judging for that kind of show. And I was like, this is a really cool person, like to have this kind of a career. And so I asked him like what he did before. And ironically, without him knowing my background, he was a sign painter beforehand.
Nice.
And, yeah. And so I asked him, I said, has your sign painting background helped you in judging cars? And I mean, this man's been through like judging school, which I didn't even know was a thing, but you can like go to the school to get training on how to judge these cars, these high-end cars. And he goes, I've never been asked that, but yes, actually, now that I think about it, like the sign painting has really helped me with like the paint on like original race cars. Like if the race car has been like a Le Mans car, if it's been restored, he can actually tell with his sign painting background if the paint work was original or if it was redone, or like if the patina on one side was on the correct side of the car, if it was racing on a certain track. And he's like, I've never really like put those two things together, but you know, he just had like an epiphany when I asked that question. So it was really interesting to hear him talk about those two things in conjunction. But yeah, overall, it was an amazing experience. The original I sold had, I had done it actually during COVID. It was a portrait of Burt Munro, the world's fastest Indian. And I sold it to a guy who owns a huge motorcycle shop in Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska, actually. And he collects historically significant motorcycles from all eras and countries. And he saw it and he saw the print first. And I was like, oh, I have the original here framed if you're interested. And he was like, well, I made a mistake of buying a print off of one of my favorite artists who then got really big. So I think I'm going to go for the original this time. And I was like, great.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was really cool. Super nice guy. We emailed back and forth even after he bought the painting because he had, you know, he has a love for all things automotive as far as car art goes. And so it was really cool to meet him. And obviously like that was like the last hour of the show where I sold that. So it was a huge like bump in my spirits.
Yeah, congrats on selling an original. That's always a big plus.
For anyone that I would say like I definitely went into it knowing like it was a massive, massive investment of time and money to get to the show for us. And we went into it, my husband and I both were very open and thinking like, okay, this experience we're paying for and taking the time out to get this experience and be in the same arena to network with these people. We weren't going in thinking like, man, I hope I sell out, although that was the goal. But I mean, we definitely went in with an open mind, like thinking like, okay, this is our first time being in this type of market. And if we don't sell anything, the experience alone is completely worth it because of the people we got to meet and the skills we got to learn, the things we learned for next time. So it was just a huge blessing to have the sales that we did and kind of like break even with that. So that was awesome.
Well, very cool. Congratulations on a good, successful event.
Thank you. Sorry, I know it's kind of quick and I've been talk fast, but it was a lot to sum up in like 10 minutes.
Oh, no worries. So I think one last thing we always ask people, and I sent you a message on it so you could mill it over in your mind. If you have any extraordinary, weird, funny, cool story that might have happened to you that you think the listeners might enjoy.
I love telling stories and hearing people's stories, but the first thing that came to mind is this motorcycle job I got, which I have the same sentiment that Jen does about that motorcycle customers, which y'all can go back in here or talk about it.
Yeah.
But I had a motorcycle job and I had the people had paid me the deposit. It was a couple. We had an amazing sketch drawn up. We'd gone back and forth many, many times. They were very like specific on what they wanted, which was fine with me. So they paid this massive deposit and they were supposed to drop their bike off to us at the shop, around my studio, and they didn't show up. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And so I messaged the people and like another day or so went by and these people were pretty like, they were so excited to get the work done. They were never like they never waited to email me back. And weirdly enough, the next day I got a phone call, which I just happened to answer because it was from someone I didn't know. And she goes, hey, Kate, I don't know if you know who I am. And my name is so-and-so, but I have some really unfortunate news. And I was like, okay. And she goes, the so-and-so and so-and-so who you were going to be doing this motorcycle for, actually, they passed away over the weekend. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, they unfortunately passed away over the weekend and they won't be able to have the work done. And here I was, had all these sketches like completely done and ready to go, and their money. So I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to get these people paid back. And she's like, well, you can go ahead and refund them through your processing center, and I'll just take care of it. I'm kind of handling their affairs. And then like a couple days later, there was a news article that came out, and it was a murder-suicide.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I was like, oh, my God, I almost had these people's bike in my freaking house, like at my house. And so, yeah, that was really freaky. Like, it was so freaky to have these people's money and know that they were dead. And then to find out that they pretty much, like, did that to each other. Like, oh, it was awful. It was awful. Man. So, yeah, that's my scary experience.
That's our first true crime story. Cool.
Oh, man. I hope people don't like think of me just for that story. I was hesitant to even tell it because obviously there were people that were sad in that whole scenario, and like it's death and people lost loved ones. But for me, it was just really a freaky, like Twilight-y experience because I had these dead people's money and this entire sketch done.
No, that's just peculiar. I mean, what are you going to do? It's not your fault,
Yeah, well,
it's unfortunate, but yeah, that's definitely a memory.
Yeah, like I don't even know what I would have done if I had their actual motorcycle at my shop. Like I would have been so freaked out about that. Like, how do I get it back to him? I've never rode a motocycle before, and I would never even touch it. I'd be so nervous.
Yeah, the real question is, do you finish the job? Then you're like, halfway through, it's like,
Oh my God, yeah. What if I had started painting it? That would have been even more awful.
Yeah.
I've had some friends that own hot rod shops and stuff that have had customers pass away while they've been working on their vehicles. And yeah, it's an interesting situation that puts someone in.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, it's so sad, but like when you come to find out that it's like a murder-suicide, it's even more creepy because you're like, what the heck was going on in their life to have that happen? It's so sad, but kind of freaky.
Man, you never know what people are going through, right?
Oh, it's so true. All the more reason to just be friendly to everyone if you can.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, so that's what I got for you. But you could probably do a whole podcast on like stories like that. Like I have so many cool, interesting things, like stuff that's happened in Italy when I was studying abroad there. And I mean, we could talk for hours about that, but that's, that was the funniest one I could think of, or the scariest one I could think of.
All right. Well,
not the funniest.
Yeah, definitely not the funniest.
It depends on how what your sense of humor is like.
My husband's a funeral director, so we have a pretty morbid sense of humor in this household.
Yeah, I love true crime stuff. It's always horrible, but I love true crime stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was a good one. But yeah, I think that should be about it. Jack, you got anything else? We'll go ahead and start wrapping it up so we can all get on with our day.
No, sounds good. Good conversation.
Absolutely. Thank y'all so much for having me on here. And I'm so glad to be a part of the Pinstripers panel jam with you, Jack. And like, I think it's going to be wonderful, like in the coming years. And Freddie, I hope that you do get to join us next year. And and if anybody wants to follow us on Instagram, we're at the Great Texas Panel Jam on Instagram. And we're going to, have artist features and sponsor highlights and stuff as the next show starts to kick up and we get a little bit more details. We'll start posting on that again. So,
all right. Well, I'll put as soon as y'all get a date, as soon as you send me the date, and I'll put it in my calendar.
Absolutely. We'll definitely announce the crap out of it. Whenever the Dallas Autorama is happening in 2024, that's when we'll be there.
Okay, so that's easy to spot. Okay.
Yeah. But we'll definitely announce it. You won't be able to get rid of us either.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kate, and thank you for everything you do.
Oh, thank you guys too. I hope y'all have a great day.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.